"Counselor, given your background, I'm not sure you're equipped to handle a case of this magnitude." That's the moment a judge tried to humiliate a young black lawyer in a packed courtroom. He didn't have a clue that the lawyer knew his single darkest secret. The judge was about to learn that power is a fragile thing, and justice has a very long memory. This is a story of how one sentence didn't just silence a courtroom. It destroyed a corrupt judge's career forever. We see stories of power being abused all the time, but it's rare we get to see it confronted with such raw courage. If you believe that justice should be for everyone and that no one is above the law, take a second to hit that subscribe button and join a community that demands accountability. Don, forget to tell us where you are watching from in the comments. The man on the bench was Judge Marcus Thorne. In legal circles, they called him the Lion, not for his bravery, but for his predatory courtroom style. Thorne was famous for his iron gavel and silver tongue, which he rarely used to clarify the law. Instead, he used it to belittle anyone he decided was beneath him. He ran the 12th District Court like it was his own personal kingdom, a stage where he was the only star. And on this particular Tuesday, he had a full house. The case was a messy corporate fraud trial, and it was exactly the kind of high-profile drama where Thorne loved to perform for the press. On the other side of the courtroom stood David Imani. To anyone watching, he was everything Judge Thorne wasn't. Young, hungry, and without the deep political ties Thorne had spent decades building. David was the lead defense counsel, a job many thought was way out of his league. From the second the trial started, Thorne singled him out. It began with small things. "Counselor," Thorne would drone, his voice dripping with fake patience. "Let's try to stick to the relevant facts. I know these complicated financial details can be confusing." He cut off David's questions, sustained ridiculous objections from the prosecution, and literally rolled his eyes at David's arguments. It was a slow, deliberate attempt to humiliate the young lawyer. But David Imani didn't break. He took every insult with a quiet, unnerving calm, because he knew something nobody else in that room did. He hadn't just spent weeks preparing his case. He'd spent weeks preparing for the judge himself. By day 3, Judge Thorne's attacks weren't just unprofessional. They were personal. He was no longer just questioning David's legal tactics. He was questioning his right to even be there. During a cross-examination, David was masterfully taking apart a key witness, revealing one inconsistency after another. The jury was captivated. The prosecution was starting to sweat. Thorne could feel the power in the room shifting away from him, and he couldn't stand it. He slammed his gavel. "Counselor Imani, that's enough," he boomed. "Let me be frank. Your line of questioning is becoming erratic. Perhaps you attended one of those newer law schools where they don't emphasize courtroom decorum." The racist jab was designed to sting, to throw David off and remind him he was an outsider. A tense silence fell over the courtroom. David simply took a slow breath. "Your Honor," he said, his voice perfectly level, "I graduated 5th in my class from Harvard Law. I can assure you they covered decorum." The comeback was so sharp and factual, it earned a few coughs from the gallery trying to hide their laughter. But this only made Thorne angrier. He leaned over the bench, his voice dropping to a low growl. "Harvard or not, Counselor, in my courtroom, you are a guest. You would do well to remember that. Are we clear?" The threat was unmistakable. "I own this room. I own you." For anyone else, that would have been it. But for David Imani, it was a signal. The judge had finally, fatally, overplayed his hand. David stood perfectly still, letting the judge's threat hang in the silent air. He didn't look at the jury or the gallery. His eyes were locked directly on Judge Marcus Thorne. The judge, expecting a fumbled apology, just stared back with a cruel smile. "I asked you a question, Counselor. Are we clear?" David gave a slow, deliberate nod. "Crystal clear, Your Honor." He paused, letting the words hang in the air. "But before we continue discussing my qualifications, perhaps the court should first hear your explanation for your involvement in the 1998 Briarwood real estate scheme. The fraud case your name was, shall we say, mysteriously scrubbed from?" The silence that followed was absolute. The air was sucked out of the room. The judge's smug smile didn't just vanish. It shattered. The massive, arrogant power crumbled, revealing a face of pure, raw panic. His mouth hung open, but no sound came out. His eyes darted around the room, desperately looking for an escape that wasn't there. In that one devastating sentence, David hadn't just challenged a judge. He'd seized control of the entire courtroom. The lion had been declawed, defanged, and caged by a quiet whisper of a 20-year-old truth. For a full 10 seconds, the world stopped. Judge Thorne, pale as a sheet, finally found his voice, though it was a choked, strangled gasp. This court is in recess," he stammered, fumbling for his gavel. He practically fled the bench, his black robes billowing behind him as he slammed the door to his chambers. The courtroom exploded into chaos. Reporters were already on their phones, their voices low but urgent. David Imani, however, remained perfectly still. He calmly gathered his papers, his hands steady. His co-counsel stared at him, her mouth wide open. "David, what was that?" "Is it true?" she whispered, terrified and in awe. David just looked at her and gave a single, firm nod. The lead prosecutor, who had been loving the judge's favor just minutes before, walked over, his face a mix of shock and a strange new respect. "Imani," he said, shaking his head, "you just ended that man's career." David didn't smile. He didn't gloat. He simply said, "He ended it himself. I just read the minutes." The battle was over, but the war for justice was just getting started. What happened next was a swift and brutal unraveling. The case David mentioned wasn't a rumor. He'd gotten a tip from an old colleague of Thorne's, a man pushed out his firm decades earlier for trying to blow the whistle. David had spent weeks digging through old archives and sealed documents, finally unearthing the original, unaltered case file. It proved that a young Marcus Thorne was a key player in a scheme that defrauded elderly people out of their homes. His name had been wiped from the official record as a favor. Once David presented that evidence to the chief district judge, Thorne's downfall was immediate. He was suspended that afternoon. Within a week, the State Commission on Judicial Conduct launched a full investigation. Facing impeachment and criminal charges, Marcus Thorne resigned in disgrace. His 20-year career gone in an instant. His name, once feared, became a synonym for corruption. And David Imani? He became a quiet legend. He won the fraud case for his client, but his real victory was so much bigger. He proved that in the right hands, the law is more powerful than any title, any position, and any judge. Now, while this story is a dramatic retelling, it hits on a fundamental truth. The entire justice system depends on brave people speaking truth to power. Real-life cases of judicial misconduct are a serious issue, even if they don't always end so cinematically. David Imani is a reminder that one person with courage and the truth can restore balance, no matter who they're up against. What do you think? Was David's move a brilliant stroke of justice or a massive gamble? Let us know in the comments below. And don't forget to subscribe for more stories of justice served.